Kyle Busch might now return to Joe Gibbs Racing 2023 after more details come out in regards to more potential sponsorship issues. Kurt Busch says a timetable has not been revealed in regards to if he will retire after 2023 or not. We've got more updates in regards to the disqualification from last night for Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR stories to talk about today. Let's go ahead and jump into it. The first story we're going to talk about is Three Doors Down. It was revealed on Friday that Three Doors Down is going to do a pre-race concert for the Bristol Night Race. Holy crap, what a throwback. Three Doors Down, known for songs like Here Without You, The Road I'm On, Till When I'm Gone, many incredible songs they've released over the years, and it's amazing they are going to do an amazing pre-race concert. Of course, we already know NASCAR drivers associated with the video with The Road I'm On, Dillon Jr., Tony Stewart in The Road I'm On. I think this is amazing, absolutely incredible, and I'm happy to see that Three Doors Down will do a pre-race concert for the Bristol Night Race. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Brandon Igdelski. As Brandon Igdelski is leaving full-time motorsports work after this week, and so after now, and to pursue some personal business aspirations and consulting gigs. Brandon Igdelski had basically been involved in motorsports for 33 years and had been involved, I believe, with his brother Nick Igdelski here at Pocono Raceway. It's unfortunate he's leaving, but if he wants to go for some personal business and aspirations, I don't blame him. We'll see how long what this means for Pocono long term. So I know he hasn't been part of Pocono for about a year now, so we're going to see what happens long term. But man, congratulations on incredible and a long career with NASCAR, and I'm glad to see he's looking to do something else. I think that's awesome, and I think that's really, really great, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Ross Chastain. As Ross Chastain is going to drive the 92 for DiBenedetto Racing this weekend at the Indy Road Course. I believe this will be the second time that he has raced in the 92 this year. Earlier this year, he raced at Circuit Americas and was contending for a potential victory there against a guy like AJ Allmendinger. I think Ross Chastain's going to have a really good chance to win this weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, along with the Cup Series, as he'll be looking for his third win of the season in the NASCAR Cup Series. He'll also be looking for, I believe, his first or second win in the Xfinity Series this season. I think he's got a shot to get it done. He's a pretty awesome, a really solid road course racer, and I'm very happy to see that he will be getting behind the wheel to race in the 92 for DiBenedetto Racing. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Brandon Brown and Austin Dillon. It was announced on Friday that there's going to be a driver swap for the weekend. So instead of Brandon Brown driving his own 68 car, Austin Dillon is actually going to drive the 68 for Brandon Build Motorsports this weekend at the Indy Road Course. And Brandon Brown will also be, though, competing, as he'll be driving the 47 for My Carmen Racing at the Indy Road Course. The reason is because of sponsorship issues. They put out a statement yesterday on Friday basically saying that they're having a lot of sponsorship problems and issues. A lot of this is due to what happened at the end of last year after the whole Let's Go Brandon situation last year, is why they've been struggling to find sponsors, which is really, really unfortunate. That being said, I would think Austin will be somewhat of a contender, and I think Austin really can come in there and give Brandon a lot of advice, see where their equipment really is, because they did get a top 5 a couple weeks ago at New Hampshire. A lot of that was helped by a lot of wrecks, of course, but all that for the matter. We'll see what Austin Dillon can do. If Brandon Brown can make the field of My Carmen Racing car, that'll be great, but I think his chance of making the playoffs could be going out the window because basically of this. So it's really unfortunate what happens, but sometimes you're basically going to have things happen like this. Hopefully he can just make the best out of it in that car, and hopefully he can make the field for the event. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Iowa Speedway. As it was announced from Iowa Speedway, we got a lot of stuff from Iowa Speedway, by the way, but the first thing is it was announced on the PEA. Bud Danker revealed that Iowa Speedway is going to be on the IndyCar schedule through the 2025 season. Absolutely well-deserved. If you saw the crowds at the racetrack, it was filled up. Yes, I know it's only got 38,000 seats, but that is the most filled-up crowd I've seen for a race at Iowa in a very, very long time. For both days, the crowd was really, really filled up. So that's one of the reasons why they're bringing it back here in 2023, 24, and 2025. And maybe in the future, NASCAR could bring some cup racing there in the future. Highway's been really a lot of awesome activation for the weekend, and that's why they're bringing it back. I think it's awesome, really amazing to see, and I'm definitely really happy for sure to see that they're bringing Iowa Speedway back on the IndyCar schedule. Really great to see. 3 years. I think it's well-deserved, well-earned, and very happy to see that for sure, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has been revealing, and Chris Knight and a good buddy of mine, Casey Campbell, which happy birthday to Casey Campbell, by the way, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has revealed he is going to run a few more races with Big Machine Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. The two races that he has so far confirmed to run are going to be Michigan and Daytona, so he'll be running two of the bigger tracks. He actually made his first start with Big Machine Racing earlier this past weekend at Pocono. Unfortunately, what ended up happening to him at Pocono was basically what ended up happening was he got involved in a wreck, I think around 60, 45 or 50 laps to go in the race, and that's what really caused Jet Burton to go up. I think Stenhouse will have some decent pace and speed. I don't think he's going to win in these cars over those two races. Well, he might win Daytona because anyone can win Daytona, but we'll see how he does in Michigan. But I think Stenhouse will be somewhat of a threat to win for sure Daytona, and maybe he'll be a threat to win Michigan. Who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see what happens, but I'm very happy to see that Stenhouse is back behind the wheel of that car. Good luck to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as he tries to have a good run in those cars this weekend. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about the French Grand Prix. Now, of course, the French Grand Prix happened this weekend on Sunday with all the chaos and craziness. We had the French Grand Prix, and it was also a race that was very, very chaotic. Charles Leclerc actually was leading the race early, actually basically spun out around, like, I think, 19 laps into the race. He spun out, had something maybe break on the car, but he also said that he thinks he made a mistake. He spun out going to believe into one of the corners and basically spun out into the outside wall really, really hard, bringing out a yellow. And then Max Verstappen basically took control of the race, had the race lead, ended up winning his 26th or 27th career Formula One victory, and now has a 63-point lead over Charles Leclerc. I think at this point, unless Max Verstappen has a catastrophic failure last 10 or 11 races, I think he's going to be your champion for the second year in a row. Anything can happen, though, but, man, Charles Leclerc and Ferrari just completely messed up. They had bad strategy in the race for Carlos Sainz, and it really is unfortunate what happened for both the Ferrari guys. Charles took responsibility, but you can't just make those mistakes, especially have those issues, especially when you got a shot at winning the championship, and you pretty much at this point have just handed a very, very easy championship to Max Verstappen. So I don't see Perez catching it. I think Perez is like 80 points back. It's going to be really tough to make up a 63 points. That's two full races you're going to have to make up. So if the championship continues the way it is, Verstappen could clinch championship right now very, very early. So definitely unfortunate what happened, but congratulations to Max Verstappen on picking up the victory. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the IndyCar doubleheader from Iowa. Now, I watched both races, and I'll say they were both really, really good. On race number one, basically the race was dominated by the Penske duo of Will Power and Joseph Newgarden. Joseph Newgarden, though, got around Will Power on basically lap 25 and never really distinguished the lead and ended up winning the race. So Joseph Newgarden won race one. The driver of the day, though, and the star of the show was Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson's making it 3 wide, 4 wide, even 5 wide at points, is making some really aggressive moves. And he ended up finishing, I believe, 9th in the race, which isn't as good as probably they wanted to, but the tires kind of fell off in the second half of the race. But still a really solid day for Jimmie Johnson in race one, and probably the most impressive race, at least race one, was super, super impressive. But Joseph Newgarden got the victory. I believe Will Power ended up finishing on the podium, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Pat O'Ward ended up finishing second or third. I can't remember exactly, but I believe those are the two that finished on the podium. Then race number two is kind of a little more chaotic. The race was really dominated by Will Power and Joseph Newgarden once again in the early half of the race. Joseph Newgarden got around Will Power after Will Power got squeezed up in traffic, and Joseph Newgarden really never extinguished lead except basically when they had to come to pit road. However, with around 60 laps to go in the race, Joseph Newgarden had something break on the car going into turn number 3 and got into the outside wall, bringing out a caution with 60 laps to go. That basically handed the lead to Pat O'Ward, and Pat O'Ward pulled off to a major, major lead and ended up winning his second race of the 2022 season in IndyCar and basically coming back into the championship on not only being able to be 35 or 36 points below. And so congratulations to Pat O'Ward. Jimmie Johnson also got his first career top 5 finish IndyCar, so well done to Jimmie Johnson. Congratulations to him on that. Something that did happen after the race, so basically Joseph Newgarden actually fell, I believe, on his head after being basically coming out of the infield care center. Fell on his head, and basically we're unclear right now if he'll be racing. My prayers and condolences do go out to Joseph Newgarden at this time. Hope he's able to recover and can be back at the racetrack, but if he doesn't, we'll probably have someone else like maybe a Felipe Nasser, or maybe Austin Cindric could make double duty potential. Who knows at this point? But my prayers and condolences do go out to both of them, and we'll see what happens to Joseph Newgarden, and we'll see if he gets back behind the wheel here in the future. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Zane Smith. As Zane Smith was in the media center this past week, and he says he has nothing set in stone for the 2023 season. I'll be honest, I'm kind of a little bit shocked considering Zane Smith. We all thought that Zane Smith had a multi-year deal. I know that Ford wants to keep Zane Smith long-term, but wow, I'm definitely surprised and shocked that we really don't know what's going to happen to Zane Smith after facing for 2023. Maybe he's playing with us and saying, oh, maybe someone can try to find a sponsor for me, perhaps. I really don't know, but I'm definitely a little shocked and surprised that Zane Smith does not currently have anything set for 2023, considering Zane Smith is having a really awesome year. He just won the regular season championship in the NASCAR Tampa Road Truck Series. He also basically has been having a great year, already 3 wins so far this year. Outside of Chandler Smith, who won at Pocono, he's the only driver that has more than 3 wins so far this year, well as Coreyheim as well. But he's been having an amazing year. He's having a career year so far in his NASCAR career in general, and he's done amazing. I hope he's able to stay front row. He deserves it. I don't think he's going to be full-time in Cup next year. I know there's been some conversations. Maybe he could be a potential candidate for that 10 car heading into 2023, but I think Zane Smith absolutely deserves to be back in this truck next year, and I think he will be a much more championship threat than he's already is this year. He's done amazing. He's done incredible, and I really hope that there is a way where they can find an opportunity to keep him in the car long term. He's a great driver, and he deserves to be in the car much longer than that. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the SRX officiating issues. Now, if you watch the season finale for the race at Stenhouse Speedway, we saw a lot of controversy on social media where someone pointed out that Marco Andretti basically had gotten 3 extra bonus points, and we all thought that Ryan Newman should be the champion, right? Well, here's the situation. It wasn't until NASCAR Man posted on Twitter that basically got clarified. No, they basically gave 3 points back to Marco because they had to call him down to pit road. So that's why they gave him the 3 points. Great to see that someone in the basically that's not even associated with the SRX, NASCAR Man. I love NASCAR Man, but it shouldn't be him who's revealing this. I'm glad that he brought this up because, like, why is it that it almost took 24 hours, even 12 or 13 hours, for this to be clarified? Why did Don Hawk have to wait? You have to wait till NASCAR Man posted it for them to give us clarification. I don't like that. That's a little frustrating. That's a little irritating from the SRX, and that's what I'm saying. This officiating issues have to be fixed. I don't understand why it took them so long to freaking, tell us. I don't know why NASCAR Man had to be able to reveal it, and I just think it's stupid because they basically made us wait way too long to find out exactly what we wanted to hear. We got the right. They actually got it right, so Marco Andretti is the true champion, and he deserves it because he basically broke his wrist, by the way. But I just don't understand why it took them so long to basically say, you know what, we made it. We just said, you know what, we made a mistake. We didn't screw up right there, and we made the right call. So it shouldn't have taken that long, in my opinion. It was really frustrating. But congratulations to Marco Andretti, and it shouldn't take that long for them to fix some officiating calls. I think that's stupid. I think that's ridiculous, and it shouldn't have taken that long to get the call right, in my honest and sincere opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about 2311 Racing. Now, Denny Hamlin was in the media center this past weekend, and Denny Hamlin told the media that he says that 2311 Racing is planning to have their own pit crew members starting in 2023 and will not be getting different pit crew members from Joe Gibbs Racing heading into 2023, and they're planning to have a recruitment process starting here very, very shortly. This is something that has needed to happen for a very, very long time because if you look at 2311 and their pit stops this year, they have really, really struggled on pit road. So I think that Denny Hamlin realizes is that they basically have to wait until next year to really make this move. But I think he said basically what he's saying is it's time to start figuring out what we're going to do toward 2023 because we have all Kurt Busch in the playoffs currently, at least as of now. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Bubba Wallace also looking to need 2 wins. A lot of races this year for both drivers, not just Bubba Wallace, but Kurt Busch as well, have been cost by major pit crew errors, by major issues from Joe Gibbs Racing. And I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to get ahead of the game to make sure they can have a better pit crew heading into 2023 and improve their team. And I love what they're trying to do is they're trying to get steps forward to make some big moves to help out their team. And they've needed to do this for a while because if you especially look at Bubba Wallace this year, how many races he's been cost an opportunity to win. they have needed to do this for a very, very long time. So I think this is a major thumbs up and a major step in the right direction for 23XI Racing to get their own pickers. They've needed to do this. I'm happy. Again, I'm very happy they're doing this because they've needed to do this for a long time. And it's good to see that they are going ahead and working on doing this toward the future. I think this is the right decision, the right call, and in my opinion, the right call to go ahead and work on the pickers. So I think they have needed to do it for a long time, and I'm glad they're doing it, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about Matt DiBenedetto. As according to Chris Knight, Matt DiBenedetto is going to be returning to Rackley WAR Racing heading into the 2023 season and will continue driving the 25 truck for the team next year. I believe he's the first driver so far to confirm for 2023 in the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series, and it took up until the end of July for the first confirmation for 2023. But I think this is well-deserved in my opinion. While Matt DiBenedetto has not completely set the world on fire, like some people thought, like even Phil Parsons thought that he'd be a championship 4 contender, Matt DiBenedetto has been a very solid driver so far in the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series. He did not make the playoffs this year, but I believe he's got a shot to finish 11th. I think he currently sits 12th or 13th in the points, which is way better than I thought he was going to do with Rackley WR Racing. And there have been a couple times this year where they've had top 5 speed or even winning speed in that truck, but they unfortunately have had some bad luck come their way and haven't had the opportunity. But over this year, the team has been getting better and better. And that's why it's a good decision for them to keep it. It's like, why would you break up a really good duo and combination that's working really, really well? I think it makes sense to keep him, and I think he deserves to be in this opportunity. Now, does Matt DiBenedetto have a potential opportunity to go and race a cup race or Xfinity next year? That could be a big possibility. There is an opportunity that he could, but again, sponsorship is really going to come into play for a guy like Matt DiBenedetto. But I think he deserves this opportunity. He's doing really, really well so far in the Camp World Truck Series this year. And I think going into 2023, the goal is to try to maybe go win a race or two next year and see if he can go out there and, get into the playoffs. I think the goal is to make the playoffs next year. The fact that they nearly made the playoffs here, I think is a big accomplishment. They just had a few races like Kansas and Mid-Ohio where they kind of got thrown away and lost their opportunity there. And also a couple races there at like Vegas where things didn't go well, Atlanta where things didn't go well. Kind of threw his way his opportunity to make the playoffs, but I am happy he's going to be coming back to the team next year. He deserves it. He's a great driver, a great talent, and he absolutely deserves to be returning to the team, in my honest and sincere opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about Iowa Speedway. Now, it was reported on Friday from Adam Stern that Rusty Wall says that the buzz around IndyCar's doubleheader will help get the track a NASCAR Cup Series date sometime in the future. Now, Iowa has not been on the NASCAR schedule at all, I believe, since 2019. The last time was in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and also in the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series. That was raced for disqualification habit where Brett Moffitt was handed the victory at Iowa because Ross Chastain failed post-race inspection. And that also was where I believe Chase Briscoe picked up his only win in 2019. Iowa Speedway is a very, very solid track, and it has been off the schedule for a couple years. I know ARCA's been racing there, but I think it definitely deserves an opportunity to have a cup date. If they're going to get 38,000 fans to show up to Iowa and they're going to be keeping racing there for 3 years, why not have a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader there? Have a couple, like you can have one in Indy, but why not have a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader over the weekend at Iowa Speedway? I think if they've got 3 years to do it, I think it would be amazing if they did go ahead and do it. And I think Iowa has served the Cup Day for a very, very long time. And I've been hearing over the grapevine through the industry that basically they've been talking about this for a while. They've been talking about trying to bring Iowa Speedway back to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. They've been trying to bring it back to NASCAR. There's other tracks they're trying to look at potentially going back to. But Iowa is a really, really good track. It's a great facility overall. And again, they've made some major updates. Hy-Vee really has that great activation with the racetrack. And NASCAR could, if they wanted to, they could work with Hy-Vee to really work on a date and get this track up to speed and up to full song. I think this is awesome. I think it's amazing. And I really hope Iowa does get an opportunity to have a cup date potentially in 2023 or 2024. I don't know if it'll be 2023, to be honest, if there is going to be a cup date, but I think going into 2024, I think it would be awesome if they had an opportunity to basically give another date. I think it's amazing. I think, again, it's awesome. And, again, I hope Iowa does get a chance to host a NASCAR Cup Series day. I think it would be really awesome. They've deserved the cup date for a while. And, again, I know they haven't had one ever. They've had Xfinity trucks, but I think it would be amazing if the Cup Series did get an opportunity to have a cup date. I think generally it would be awesome and amazing, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Petty GMS Motorsports. We've got a couple stories around Petty GMS Motorsports. We're going to talk about more of the bigger story. as there was revealed after Cup Series qualifying and during the NASCAR Xfinity Series race that Penny GMS Motorsports, the 42 and 43 teams, have been assessed 35 owner/driver points, which are L1 penalties, for messing with the rocker box assembly. You cannot mess with that rocker box assembly, and they are messing with the rocker box assembly, meaning they have received some massive points penalty. Very, very crucial major penalties for Petty GMS Motorsports. That's not the biggest penalty of the weekend. That could be coming this week, by the way. And they also said in their statement that they said they understand the rules and the penalties, and they are not going to appeal the penalties, so they're going to keep the penalties that they currently have. This is really, really unfortunate for guys like Erik Jones, who are currently have a shot to make the playoffs, maybe on points. I think this basically puts him 100%, even though he was already in a must-win situation to begin with. This pretty much puts Erik Jones in a must-win situation, having to win 2 races at this point, because he could have mathematically made up at least one. It could have had 1 win, mathematically could have gotten there, especially if Kurt Busch stays out for a couple weeks here. It's really unfortunate, but again, this is what NASCAR is. They're not wanting you to mess with these cars. You cannot mess with the rocker box assembly on these cars. That is something you're not allowed to mess with, and they mess with the rocker box assembly, so NASCAR has to come down with the penalties. And again, NASCAR doesn't want you touching these cars. Rocker box is I believe it's a pretty quintessential part to the next-gen car, and you really could damage it and make mistakes. But it is good to see at least Erik Jones did get a good run out of it. I think Erik Jones made up a lot of points, which is a great thing, and I think in all seriousness, maybe they'll learn from their mistakes and not make mistakes long term. But this was a massive story for the weekend. They lost a lot of drivers' points. Dillon drops, I believe, around 30th in the regular season points, was like 20th, and now he's 30th in the points. So that's really unfortunate for Dillon, who's leaving the team at the end of this year. It's been a bad couple weeks for Petty GMS in general. Hopefully they can turn things around, but there's maybe some massive penalties that came out for both drivers. It makes a lot of sense. They had to make the call, and in my opinion, I think it's the most justifiable call they can make, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Erik Jones. As Erik Jones was in the media center this past weekend, and he reiterated that they should have a deal done soon to stay in the 43 Cup car heading into the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. Now, like I mentioned, Erik Jones is looking to return to Petty GMS heading into 2023. We've talked about this on the channel a couple times already, but there's been talk about this really throughout the last couple weeks. And the reason is because Erik Jones is having an amazing year in the 43 car. You look at his stats so far this year. Erik Jones so far this year has, while he's not won a race, he scored 2 or 3 top 5 this year, and he scored 6 or 7 top 10s up to this point this year, and has made the 43 car the most competitive it has been since probably AJ Allmendinger drove the car back in 2011. So over a decade since the last time they had an amazing season like this. And when you generally look at Erik Jones, I think he's one of the most underrated drivers. Now, Erik Jones could potentially lead the team after 2023, perhaps, and go to a team like Ridge Shows Racing, which I think would be a slight upgrade. Maybe he becomes a candidate in 2024 for the A car, perhaps, if Reddick does come back to 2023 and drives the A car. But I really do, in my honest heart, believe that Erik Jones will make the playoffs next year. He's got a chance to get it done with Petty GMS. He's a really, really good driver. I think the team they've fallen off a little bit, but they had a big week this past week that showed maybe they're kind of not really falling off as much as we think they've been. They've been a top 20 driver pretty much all year long, and the 43 team has been one of the most underrated teams so far in 2022, in my opinion. I think Erik Jones is a great driver, a very, very solid driver, and I think he will do really good heading into 2023. I think the goals are trying to go out there and win 1 race next year. I think it'd be great if the 43 car could win. Yes, those are really high expectations for a driver like Erik Jones, but I think Erik Jones, if there's anybody capable of getting it done, I think Erik Jones can do it. He's a really good, really solid driver, and he deserves an opportunity to come back to the team. He's done really awesome, really great, and I'm happy to see Erik Jones more than likely will be back with the team heading into 2023. I think he's awesome and deserves that opportunity, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Auto Club Speedway. Now, we've talked about the short track project really here over the last couple days, really over the last couple months, but we kind of got an update basically that they're going to be having the 2-mile course in 2023 and transition over in 2024. Well, it seems like they're starting to begin the process of already moving seats already toward that short track project. There was video service and photograph service from at least Stephen Wawa or Stephen Maywa or whatever, I can't remember the guy's name exactly, but that guy posted some photographs showing that basically the track is already beginning to cut seats, and it's because it's become a pretty big story. One of the big reasons, like I mentioned, is that they're working on a massive short track project to Auto Club into a hybrid track that is very similar to tracks like Richmond. It basically integrates tracks like Bristol, Richmond, and Martinsville all into one, and it's a major hybrid track, and it's going to be a half-mile track as well. You've already seen iRacing, and they're planning to have that race in 2024. But we've got an update as well from NASCAR saying that they are basically removing seats regardless to get it prepared, but they still are going through the approval process, but they're already beginning, but they said they're still waiting for the approval from the racetrack to get it approved. Now, I'm going to give my overall opinion on this because I'm kind of mixed on this. First thing, do I personally want Auto Club to become a short track after the race we had this year? No, I don't think we need to turn Auto Club personally. I don't want to see Auto Club become a short track. However, here's the thing I need to tell a lot of fans they need to understand. Number one, fans really want short tracks, and I think NASCAR really wants to clamor or turn Auto Club potentially so they can have a place where they can move the season finale to. The second thing is that I think because they're going to have, here's the thing, they're going to have to repave the track in the next couple seasons. So I think them turning to half-mile track is really going to be a necessary evil. And I think if they repave the track, I don't think the racing itself is going to be as good. So my personal opinion, while I'm not a big fan of them looking to make it into a short track, there's other tracks like Texas Motor Speedway perhaps that you probably could turn into a short track. I think it is a necessary evil because I do feel like that we're not going to get as many good races going forward as we saw this year because that race was really amazing. And let's be honest, for 2011, when was Auto Club really a great track anyways? So I think that this is a good decision overall. Again, I don't want them to do this, but personally, I think they're going to have to do this, in my opinion. They're going to have to do this because they're going to repave the track eventually anyways, and I don't think the racing is going to be as good if they repave the track. So I understand fans not being happy about the Auto Club turning into short track, and I get it and understand, but they have to make a necessary evil. It's unfortunate to do it. It is what it is, and I get a lot of fans being upset, but they have to make a decision, and it's a NASCAR decision if they want to do it or not. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Ross Chastain versus Denny Hamlin. Now, if you watched the NASCAR Cup Series race yesterday, you saw that Denny Hamlin pretty much paid back Ross Chastain. On the late restart with around 20 laps to go in this race, Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain have already had issues up to this point this year. We're racing side by side going into turn number 1. And Ross Chastain, I believe, was on the outside. And Denny Hamlin basically forced Ross Chastain wide up into the racetrack, into the outside wall, and came back down to the racetrack and collected Kevin Harvick, and Chris Abel also got damaged as well. Kevin Harvick said he nearly broke his wrist and nearly snapped his wrist and basically could have been out for the rest of the year because of that. He basically nearly snapped his wrist, and Ross Chastain basically ended up wrecking. Now, after the race, basically after this situation happened, Denny Hamlin, we thought won, did not end up winning. But basically after the situation happened, Ross Chastain was interviewed by NASCAR and NBC, and he basically said that I knew it was coming for a long time. I've had payback coming. I knew it was coming, and basically said that he basically said he knew it was coming, took responsibility for everything that's happened. He said, I've known it's been coming for a while, so I can't even be mad about it. And Ross Chastain kind of sounded like he said it's over. It's like, he basically had put a smile up and said he's hoping it's over, but maybe we'll see more between these two. I'm hoping that we're done with this Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin situation after this, but let's transition to my thoughts. I think it's better for this to happen now, in my opinion, than basically happen in the playoffs. I think Denny Hamlin doing this now and getting that monkey off his back, basically, I think is really the main driver, because we know that Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin have had issues all the way up throughout this year. You look back earlier this year at Gateway where Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain had issues. You look back at Atlanta earlier this year where they had some issues. I think it's rightfully the right decision to go ahead and have this happen now. Again, you don't want other drivers getting involved, and I don't like when other drivers end up getting their cars wrecked from situations. And I don't know if it was intentional or not. It might have been intentional. I'm not entirely sure what Denny Hamlin did. But I personally, like I said, I think it is the right call and right decision for this to happen. And I think it needed to happen for Ross now compared to maybe later. I think it is the right call and right decision to happen now. I know a lot of fans, a lot of Ross Chastain fans weren't happy, but even Ross is like, look, we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming. We can't even be mad about it. We have really no right to be mad because he's had so many drivers and had issues with this year. He's had issues with so far with Kyle Larson. He's had issues with Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney's another one, Chase Elliott. And I think if he can just keep his cool and not get involved in wrecks and not cause any more problems on the racetrack, he could be a championship threat. Because I'll tell you, if this did not happen, Hamlin wrecked in the playoffs, probably doesn't get there. But in all seriousness, in all honesty, I think it was the right decision to go ahead and have it happen now. And hopefully we're done with this whole Ross and Denny Hamlin fiasco. Again, I know that everyone does not, some people don't like Ross, including Jeff Burton, but I think it is a better decision to have it happen now compared to later. And in my opinion, I think it was overall the right decision to go ahead and have this happen, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the first of three major stories in today's episode, as we've gotten more updates in regards to the disqualification that happened yesterday for both Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch. Now, if you watched the NASCAR Cup Series race yesterday, we all thought that Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch had finished 1-2. Kyle Busch got a really strong run, and we all thought that Denny Hamlin picked up his 49th career victory and got his third win of the 2022 season. Well, not so fast. Both drivers failed post-race inspection yesterday and got disqualified and were basically sent to the back of the field. Now, I did a video on this yesterday, kind of giving my initial thoughts on the situation, but after I did that video, we got more updates in regards, and Brad Moran, who basically does like the technical inspection stuff, is one of the higher-ups at NASCAR. He basically said that the reason that they gave the disqualification is that they had issues on the front fascia, and there was basically material on the front fascia of the car, and that was the reason for the disqualification. Now, Brad Moran did basically say to the media after he basically said that this is a potential appealable penalty. If they want to appeal this penalty, they can do it. They are planning to bring Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch's car back to the R&D center. They said there probably are not going to be any additional penalties at this time, but they said they're going to check just in case. So it's more likely this could not end up being a massive penalty, but if there is issues with the car, they could both be assessed major penalties that could, and theoretically in turn, eliminate those guys from potentially making the playoffs. And this could put Denny Hamlin on the verge. If he gives us a lot of points, this could put Denny Hamlin on the potential verge of being outside the top 30 points if he does receive major penalties. Now, Joe Gibbs Racing came out with a statement last night about a few hours after this DQ was coming out. They said that they are shocked by the infraction that NASCAR has put on our team. We're going to basically we're planning to review the process in the future and take a look and see what exactly happened. This is a major penalty. Because of this, like I mentioned, Chase Elliott ended up winning the race. I saw a lot of people basically calling this a Mickey Mouse when I made a joke calling it Mickey Mouse win for Chase Elliott, but in all seriousness, in all honesty, Chase Elliott was right in the position. And the other thing, this is the first time, this is already the second time this year this happened, but this is the first time in the Cup Series where basically the top two drivers got disqualified. The last time this happened, I believe, was in 1960 at Wilson Speedway. I believe Emmanuel Zervegas, or whatever his name was one of the drivers that got penalized for this because it was due to them basically coming down pit road. They basically came down pit road and proper pit road issues or something, proper fueling or whatever. They got basically massive penalties for that. This is definitely going to be a massive story because, again, this has not happened in my lifetime, and we've already seen the Xfinity this year, but I don't think since NASCAR's disqualification, it's the first time they've disqualified people in over 6 years. This is definitely a massive story that I don't think anybody saw coming in the industry, and I think it's absolutely crazy and absolutely nuts that this happened. Now, will they appeal the penalty? It's very possible they could appeal, and I think that Joe Gibbs is going to try to appeal the penalty, and if they do try to appeal the penalty, they more than likely will go ahead and try to see if they get the win. I don't know if NASCAR will justify it. If there's stuff messing with the front face of the car, you're not allowed to mess with that, so they probably won't appeal the penalty. This could turn into something massive and major. We'll see what happens. We maybe see Joe Gibbs Racing appeal, but I'm not sure if they're going to appeal. So we'll see if more comes out from this in the future, but there is a chance that we could see an appeal coming from both those teams in the future to figure out what happened because, like I said, they gave the win to Chase Elliott. And also got Bubba Wallace another top 10 finish. So good to see Bubba Wallace get a second consecutive top 10 finish. So that's good for Bubba, but in all seriousness and all honesty, we'll see if more comes out from it in the future. And now we're going to head on to the next major story in today's episode as we are talking about Kurt Busch. Now, we've already talked about Kurt Busch on the channel earlier this week, and Kurt Busch had basically on the CBS broadcast when he was on the CBS this morning, basically kind of hinted at potential retirement after 2023, saying that next year could be his last year. Now, Kurt Busch was speaking to the media and got an answer from Bob Pockers, and Kurt Busch says that he has hinted toward possible retirement after next year, but he's also no timeline as far as making a decision for potential retirement after the 2023 season. Now, Kurt Busch, of course, will be driving the 45 car heading into 2023, but his question is if he's going to retire after 2024. There are a couple potential factors. First major factor is one, he did have concussion-like symptoms this past weekend after getting in the outside wall hard. There definitely needs to be something looked on when it comes to the safety of these cars. But Kurt Busch hit the outside wall hard. He missed his first race since 2012. He had 269 straight starts in the NASCAR Cup Series. He got in the outside wall really, really hard, and Ty Gibbs made his NASCAR Cup Series debut in the 45 car. Got a top 16 finish, which is really, really impressive, by the way, for a rookie. Yes, he ran like 30th, but he had no experience getting into a Cup car. So we'll see if Ty Gibbs goes long-term in Cup in the future. We'll talk about Ty Gibbs here in a little bit. But getting back to Kurt Busch, I do think Kurt Busch does have a major opportunity here. I think they did say he can stay as long as he wants to. But I think that concussion-like symptom issue could play long-term, and I think he needs to look at his health. He is supposed to be back at the Indy road course, by the way, and does have a waiver, so he should be back this weekend. But another big factor that really could impact the decision, that really could play a factor, is Tyler Reddick. Now, 2311 Racing is talking about maybe expanding to a third car heading into 2024. However, one of the biggest issues for this is that Tyler Reddick is supposed to potentially get in the 45 heading into 2024. And Kurt Busch is going to be one of the oldest. He's currently the second oldest NASCAR Cup Series driver in the field right now. And while I think Kurt Busch still has, and he's been a really good driver, and I want him to stay long-term in that car, I think Kurt Busch knows that Tyler Reddick is coming, and Kurt Busch could become a really big higher up in the team if he does retire. But if he does retire from the Cup Series, you think about all the incredible achievements Kurt Busch has had. Cup Series champion 2004, 34 career NASCAR Cup Series victories, has won pretty much every team outside of two teams, has pretty much won every single team he's raced for. Roush, Team Penske, 2311 Racing, Stewart-Haas Racing. He's raced for so many incredible teams and nearly got wins with Furniture Racing. He's really one of the people that really got Furniture Racing kind of up to saw and speed in 2013, got into the playoffs. It wasn't Mark Truex Jr. really. It was Kurt Busch who really started that process to getting that team a great organization, and nearly won Phoenix Racing, a team that absolutely struggled. If Kurt Busch, and Chip Ganassi Racing too, if Kurt Busch does retire after 2023, I think it's going to be really, really sad for the sport and a really sad day for the sport. But if he does retire, my opinion, first ballot Hall of Famer, should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and maybe we'll see him in the broadcast booth because he's talked about that maybe the broadcast booth could be a big calling for him. But man, if this is it for Kurt Busch after 2023, it is definitely going to be a really, really sad day for the sport and really, really frustrating. But Kurt Busch had a great career. If he does retire after 2023, he deserves an opportunity to do that. And he's been a great driver for the sport and a great ambassador for the sport. He's a great driver, and if he wants to retire after next year, I think he has absolutely the right to do that. So we'll see if Kurt Busch does retire after 2023, but there's a good chance he could retire after the 2023 season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch. Now, we've talked a lot about Kyle Busch on this channel over the last couple weeks. And the big reason is because of the potential issues and sponsorship stuff that is going on with Kyle Busch. Last time we talked about this, we talked about basically we found out the sponsor that was going to be for Kyle Busch heading into 2023, and it was going to be Oracle. Well, Oracle basically dropped off and did not sponsor Kyle Busch because the big reason they didn't sponsor is because they're dropping a lot of their company. Their company is basically cutting out a lot of their costs in the industry. And also you think about Rowdy and Oracle, which is part of Red Bull. That's another big reason right there. Now, we got a major update basically starting on Friday from Adam Stern. He says that Kyle Busch earns a lucrative salary in NASCAR via Mars around $25 million a year. Now, Dale Jr. kind of said that that's not the case, but basically earns around $25 million a season, and that's why they're having trouble finding sponsorship heading into 2022. Now, Kyle Busch did reiterate to the media on Sunday, basically that he has said yes or no if there have been more negotiations. They have been making really big progress, but they have been having major trouble finding a sponsor for Kyle Busch heading into the 2023 season, and it's not looking really good for Kyle Busch. I'm going to say this. I'm starting to head more into the direction I don't think Kyle Busch is going to return to Joe Gibbs Racing heading into 2023. The only way I think Kyle Busch can come back to the 18 car heading into 2023 is one, getting a couple more wins, or two, cutting how much he's making. Kyle Busch is a driver who really has deserved an opportunity to be paid as much, but I don't know if his performance really speaks for it. Kyle Busch right now has only scored 4 wins in the last 3 seasons and has only scored 1 win so far in 2022 and currently sits 8th in the regular season and has not finished in the top 20 in the last 5 races. Granted, he did cross the finish line in second and pretty much dominated the race, but he failed post-race inspection, so he finished 36th instead of finishing in second position like he initially was going to do in that race. Now, Kyle Busch did speak to me a couple days ago, basically back in the week, and said he had talked to some other conversations. Now, what teams could Kyle Busch go to if he does not return to Joe Gibbs Racing heading into 2023? Well, there are a few organizations he could go to. First one potentially is 23XI Racing. We've already talked about this, and the reason I bring up 23XI Racing is because Kyle Busch is, he's basically brother of Kurt Busch, and Toyota really wants to keep Kyle Busch in the stable because if Kyle Busch leaves Joe Gibbs Racing, this affects Toyota. So Toyota, what they can do is go buy a third car from a team like Spire Motorsports, perhaps, and put Kyle Busch in a third 23XI Racing car, and then bring maybe Tyler Reddick over a year early, perhaps, put him in the 18 car, and then basically have a swap heading into 2024, and Kurt Busch could return in 2024 as well and race there, or get someone else from the Toyota pipeline, like a Brandon Jones perhaps, and put him in a 23XI Racing car for 2024. So that could be a major, major possibility. Another team you potentially could be looking to go to is Stewart-Haas Racing, and according to SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, they said that Kyle Busch has apparently had some conversations with Stewart-Haas Racing as a potential candidate to maybe get into the 10 car or maybe into the 41 car for 2023. Now, first one we'll talk about is Aric Almirola. Aric Almirola has at points talked about potential returning in 2023. Initially, he said that he was going to retire after the 2023 season. But there have been some talk. Maybe Smithfield does not want him to come back heading into 2023. And there's a chance he could retire after 2022 and not come back in 2023. But maybe he could come back at least on a part-time basis and race. But there's potential that he could also Kyle Busch go to the 41 car. Look, I know that Cole Custer is the son of Joe Custer, which is a higher up. So Cole Custer probably has a long-term ride. But I'm going to be honest. If I'm Stewart-Haas Racing and I'm looking at between Kyle Busch and Cole Custer, I'm going to put Kyle Busch in the 41 car. I'm sorry. I like Cole Custer, but the dude is not a great driver. At least in the Cup Series. Good Xfinity Series driver, but has not done much in the Cup Series and got outperformed by Ty Gibbs pretty much most of the weekend. Pretty disappointing considering Cole Custer has been in the Cup Series now for 3 years and has really done nothing in his career and sits outside the top 25 in points. Pretty embarrassing from Cole Custer. So that potentially be where Kyle Busch goes to. Like I mentioned, he's had conversations with them. Another team Kyle Busch could go to is maybe Petty GMS because we know that second ride is available, but I do believe that Kyle Busch is probably not going to end up there, as I think Noah Gragson's going to end up there. And again, the biggest thing for Kyle Busch is going to be sponsorship. They need to find some big sponsor and some money for Kyle Busch if he's going to be with an organization. Or he can head back in Joe Gibbs Racing next year, but there is a potential that could happen. However, they have Ty Gibbs potentially waiting to win because Ty Gibbs right now is a driver that they're looking at to potentially be the backup plan for Toyota. They're having issues with sponsorship there, and Ty Gibbs would probably take a lot less of a deal. And Ty Gibbs has been really impressive in Xfinity, and like I mentioned a little bit ago earlier in the video, I mentioned how Ty Gibbs has been having a pretty good season so far in Xfinity, having 4 wins this year, and also doing a really good job being a much more clean driver and showing a lot more maturity. It was very clean in the race cup race yesterday and nearly got a top 15 finish in his debut and was really impressive with 16th. I know he ran 30th most of the day, but he was pretty impressive in the race. And that's what they're waiting on currently at the moment. I will say this, though. If Kyle Busch does leave Joe Gibbs Racing, this is going to be one of the biggest silly season moves that has happened since basically Dillon Jr. 2007, which unironically, Kyle Busch was involved in that. I think it is crazy to think, though, that Kyle Busch might not return to Joe Gibbs Racing heading into 2023, considering all the success that Kyle Busch has basically had in the history of that team. So we're going to see long-term if something happens if Kyle Busch does return in 2023. I know that Kyle Busch does want to return to Joe Gibbs Racing, but I'm going to be honest with you. If they can't find a sponsor, get a deal done for Kyle Busch, I think it'll be really, really disappointing and really frustrating for all Kyle Busch fans, and I can't blame Kyle Busch fans for definitely being really, really concerned. So anyway, that is going to be for today's long NASCAR and motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on page for all listeners will over that and comment your thoughts on today's video. Do you think that Kyle Busch is going to return in 2023 to Joe Gibbs Racing or not? Let me know in the comments below. And do you think that Kurt Busch will retire after 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have a race picks video for the Indianapolis Road Course as we get closer to the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. Then Wednesday, we should have a NASCAR news video. And then Thursday, I'm not sure what will be coming out yet. We're just going to have to wait and see. There's some content that's probably on the way that I think could be seen here in the future. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.